Very good afternoon to you. Thank you for attending this press briefing at very short notice. The urgency of this engagement is occasioned by a series of events that have occurred overnight and as late as this morning. That is to say, overnight we observed in the official gazette a publication from the Guyana Elections Commission in relation to the claims and objections period that is slated to commence on the 1st of October 2019 with a view of holding regional general elections at the stipulated time. Now, let me deal with that publication in the official gazette first. A perusal of the schedule, the second schedule of that order, which is dated the 26th of September 2019 and is issued under the hand of Justice Claudette Singh, Chairman of the Guyana Elections Commission. In the second schedule at 3, it details the entirety of the claims and objections period to be from the 1st of October 2019 to the 18th of November 2019. A quick calculation of that period and the number of days that comprise the same will show that it contains a period of 49 days. It was widely reported in the press coming out of the statutory meeting of the Guyana Elections Commission on Tuesday of this week that it was agreed by the Commission that the period to be allocated for claims and objections would be 35 days, and that period would commence from the 1st of October 2019. Now, I don't proclaim to be the best mathematician, but it does not require any superior mathematical skills to see that 35 days from the 1st of October would lead you to the 4th of October with both days being inclusive. So from the outset, it is everyone's guess as to where this 49-day period ending on the 18th of November 2019 came from. But my observation, or our observation of this publication, we did not remain silent on it. This morning, at the first opportunity, myself and my fellow Commissioner Robeson Ben, who's with me today, engaged the Chairman, Honorable Justice Retired Madam Claudette Singh, on this issue, because this order is issued under her hand. She undertook to us to investigate the circumstances which led to this publication, this erroneous publication, appearing in the official gazette of Guyana. And as I am speaking that this is a publication in the official gazette of Guyana, let me start by expressing my consternation that the official gazette is considered to be notice to the world. It is a publication that in law is taken to be notice to the world. And if the Guyana Elections Commission, which is responsible for this publication, will publish something so erroneous that will obviously engage the attention of all Guyanese and ostensibly the world, then why do we have to be faced with this? It only leaves us to imagine what happens with issues that may never see the light of day. But this publication in the official gazette is not the only surprising thing that we have seen today. During the course of this morning, we were met with a press release under the hand of the Public Relations Officer, Ms. Yolanda Ward, which was purportedly issued today, which says GECOM's claims and objections exercise will commence on the 1st of October 2019. This very press release repeats the erroneous dates that are included in the Gazette, but it goes further. It seeks to specify, in fact, in bold, during this exercise, every person whose name appear, and that I'm reading it as it is, grammatical errors are not mine. During this exercise, every person whose name appear on the preliminary list of electors, PLE, must visit the registration office in their respective area with their national identification card to verify their registration record in order to be included in the official list of electors. I want to label this hogwash before I go on anymore. This was never a decision taken by the Commission, either in whole or in part. In fact, it was not even a discussion that was had at the Commission level. This can only be seen as an attempt to foist another version of house-to-house registration on the citizens of this country. But importantly, how did we arrive at this stage at where we are? You would remember, ladies and gentlemen, that there was a case that was heard by the Honorable Chief Justice, Madam Justice Roxanne George, which dealt with the legality or otherwise of the conduct of the house-to-house registration process. The outcome of that case caused the cessation of the house-to-house registration exercise by way of an order from the chairman of the Guyana Elections Commission. In that seminal judgment of Her Honor, of the Honorable Chief Justice, she stated specifically and very clearly that residency was not a requirement to be included on the official list of electors, and by extension, the preliminary list of electors. This, and the reason for her coming to that conclusion in her very erstwhile judgment was that the Constitution did not impose such a requirement on the citizens of Guyana. So for this to be included in this press release from the Public Relations Officer of the Guyana Elections Commission is, I would want to label it, and I'm being very charitable when I say this, mischievous at best, but it is not surprising. Members of the media, you will recall that for 2 successive weeks, I have had cause to challenge statements made by the Public Relations Officer, and this seems to now be a trend in what is coming out or what is emanating from that section of GECOM. You'd recall last week I had to deal with the issue of the submission of documents, etc., to the Guyana Elections Commission. The week before that, I had to deal with another issue in relation to timelines and statutory dates. So this sort of misinformation coming from the Secretariat at the Guyana Elections Commission, for me, seems to be a proliferation of the mischievous acts that they have become known for. Now, it was decided in the Commission, after very intense deliberation, that the period for claims and objections would be 35 days. This was publicly stated and agreed upon by all members of the commission when it, in the press. It was widely carried and it was not disputed by any party. So, why we would have to deal with this at this juncture, like I said, is very questionable. It is not the first time that we have had reason here in the commission and at other places to question the work of the Secretariat. It is clear as well that this order is generated by the Secretariat. It begs the question whether a deliberate attempt is being made by the Secretariat to mislead and or undermine the work of the newly installed chairman. It's a question. The evidence is there for us to determine and whether that is so. That being said, it highlights the need for external scrutiny and oversight in the work of the Commission to ensure that all the processes leading up to, during, and post-election are done in keeping with the highest levels of transparency and in keeping with the tenets of the law. Because as you know, elections are a statutory function, and their timelines, their activities, etc., are all grounded in law. I believe that my colleague has some opening remarks as well, and thereafter we will entertain questions. Thank you.
Yes, well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the media. In keeping with our timelines and understanding, initially with respect to the holding of elections by the end of this year, 2019, there was a discussion all along in trying to deal with work plans which were submitted by the Secretariat, which were going into March and April of 2020, and which we clearly objected to. And the new chairperson, Madam Chair, Madam Salit Singh, did say to us that we were working towards elections towards the end of 2019. We did arrive somehow at a position, and we were very unhappy with it on our side, where we were told that it would be next year in February. But the discussions always related initially to 21 and 28 days in respect of claims and objections. There were far-flung number of days, in our view, which were mentioned. And the furthest one that I can recall was this exact number of days, 49 days. And it was mentioned by Commissioner Corbin of the other side. At the last meeting of the commission, where there was arguments again about the number of days needed, the discussions went on the question of 28 days and 35 days. There was a decision for 35 days. I voted against that decision because I was arguing for 28 days. I did hear 49 days being mentioned again from the other side. But the decision of the commission, a decision which I didn't accord with at the time, was 35 days. And that would be seen in the minutes, which I think are now coming out. It appears to me that somehow, and I've been very critical of the Secretariat or certain actors in the Secretariat, the Commission, the Secretariat itself seems to be being led on by persons who have no rights in respect of giving advice and forcing decisions on the Commission. It appears to me that the chairperson would have signed a document which had the correct number of days, says.
No. It,
Well, just my understanding of it,
different number of days.
a different number of days. But that the end result was that a document came out under her signature which had 49 days. It appears to me somehow that they were able to slip one past or under the chairperson in respect of the number of days on a gazetted document for which she signed, and that she could not have been aware of it. In fact, when we met with her this morning, and she was trying to get the CEO, she did speak with him, but he said he was in a meeting, and he didn't come over while we were there. She was quite perturbed about what we were presenting to her, and then when she looked at the two sets of documents, she was concerned enough to request that she have a meeting with the CEO and that she will get back to us later. So it appears to me, with the appearance of the press release, that there was an attempt to, beyond the Gazette, by the way of a press release, which has the widest possible circulation to the media, to present a fait accompli for the Commission in respect of the 49 days. And this is something which we cannot agree with at all. I did make a remark, I think 2 meetings ago, when the decision on the date for elections was suggested, was stated by the end of February in respect of certain actions of the Commission, of the Secretariat itself, that the tail was wagging the dog, that somehow we were not in control of this Secretariat, and it didn't matter what we said or decided at the Commission itself, that they will do whatever they want, that they were marching to the beat of a different drummer, whoever that drummer is. It could not be that by themselves, I believe, that they're willfully doing these things. There's a steady pattern that is sustained here again in the press releases and behavior of the Commission, which goes against the grain of the decisions and the will and the spirit and intent of the Commission itself in trying to uphold its constitutional duty. I also did say at the last meeting that there was a lot of skullduggery going on. That there was skullduggery going on, and there were certain actors in the Secretariat itself who were compromising and undermining the work of the Commission and our mandate. I have to say, and I support clearly, I know that there was some clearly mischievous document put out by Mr. Gordon Mosley, I believe he's a journalist, which claimed that I voted against the use or the presence of foreign observers and technical experts at the Guyana Elections Commission. That was clearly a fabrication, and I think we cleared that up. But again, as I said, there's a pattern which shows that whatever we sit down and agree by voting or by consensus to thwart the objections and the will and the spirit of our decisions. This clearly cannot continue. And in fact, I believe at the last meeting, I was the one who introduced the discussion on the presence of foreign observers and technical experts, who in fact we were awaiting since last year, I believe, or early this year, in terms of experts from the United Nations, earlier this year. We are highlighting these concerns, we're saying them again, because we have the gravest doubts as to the integrity and intent of certain actions, of certain players at the Guyana Elections Commission in relation to the holding of the general and regional elections. We have criticized all along that the Secretariat itself, in the presentations of the work plans initially in respect of the elections after the no confidence vote, that they were going in concert with actions and with interests which were in violation of the rulings of the courts and against what the Constitution required the Commission to do in itself. And they were doing everything to delay elections. And this is another further example of skullduggery at work. In my view, we cannot rely entirely on the integrity of the Guyana Elections Commission's Secretariat, that we need to urgently get in and take up the offers of support of the technical and other administrative persons who will come and do oversight and working together to improve the professionalism and the quality and integrity of work of the Secretariat of itself. I'm sure that persons there are aware of what is going on, but out of fear, they may not be willing to speak up plainly as to what is going on at the Secretariat itself. But the evidence is there in these happenstances for the public to view through the media passing it on to the Guyanese public itself. So again, I'd want to say that we are on dangerous ground in respect of the work of the Secretariat, in respect of its integrity, and that we cannot rely on this Secretariat, particularly considering the motives which underlie what is going on here and which seems to be one-sided, biased, and not in conformance with the Constitution and the rules in respect of how you do claims and objections itself by their own documents, and I guess CAS could go into that particular detail, that they are violating even the manuals which they gave out in respect of the claims and objections issue itself. Thank you.
So before we entertain questions, I just wish to refer to a document that is actually found on the website of the Guyana Elections Commission, gecom.org.gy, which is headlined Notes for the Guidance of Registration Officers and Staff when Revising the Preliminary List of Elections. That's the name, elections. Like I said, I don't own any of these errors that are contained in these documents. And at 5.0, when it deals with claims and objections, it says thus: this exercise provides eligible electors who did not register the opportunity to gain entry to the list of electors or to update their particulars, and in brackets, transfers and changes. It also provides the opportunity for objections to particulars in the preliminary list of electors, PLE. The claims and objections exercise will be conducted consequent on the publication of the preliminary list of electors at the registration offices or sub-offices. As I said earlier on, I find this highlighted section in the press release which I read relating to this imposition for persons to visit the registration offices in their respective areas with their national identification cards to verify particulars, as this is the most egregious breaches of all. This imposition ought not to be countenanced, because you do not require an identification card to go and vote. According to the Chief Justice's ruling, there is no residency requirement. So the question to be asked is, where did this requirement that they are now seeking to impose, from whence did it get its rise? Where is its grounding? Who took this decision? Who had deliberations on this? Certainly we did not have such deliberations in the commission, and certainly, most certainly, we did not take any decisions in this regard to make this imposition on the citizens of this country. We're now open for questions.
Did the chairperson say how soon she'll get back to you?
No, she did not. In fact, we were hoping, because of the urgency of this matter, we were hoping to get an almost instantaneous response, but up to the present time, I did not receive a response.
Tanya, first we'll start with you. What can you do about it? You've told us about this was not the decision of the commission. You're concerned about the manner in which the secretariat has been operating over the last couple of weeks. What can you do about it?
Well, Tanika, not to say that you've put us in a difficult position, but obviously the Secretariat is a creature, perhaps, of the Commission. And obviously, if there are breaches that are coming from the Secretariat, which are not in keeping with the mandate or decisions of the Secretariat, of the Commission, I certainly plan to ask for sanctions to be imposed on the individual office holders that are deemed responsible for these breaches.
Just let me say that we should have an urgent meeting of the commission itself, which I think we'll request, but that in any event we need this matter investigated so that the commission is not continually undermined.
But you see, as an extension of what Robeson is saying, the decision of the commission is clear. It is documented, it is unchallenged. It doesn't require much to have this issue corrected. I believe that with the stroke of a pen, this press release can be revoked and issued containing the correct information. I believe that the order, similarly, either by way of withdrawal and republication or by way of an erratum, can be corrected almost instantaneously. And this delay is also a cause of concern to me.
Do you know who are the specific rogue actors that you talk about in the Secretariat?
Well, first of all, this press release is signed. It has an owner, the public relations officer. As I said earlier on, it might have been before you came in, that it is not the first time in recent times that we've had reason to challenge the contents of, in fact, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this may be the third consecutive press release from the public relations officer that I've had reason to question. You'd recall about 2 weeks ago, I addressed the media outside of the GECOM's office immediately after statutory meeting, dealing with a press release that was issued while the commission meeting was ongoing. I came out and I dealt with that issue. Last week, I believe it was last Tuesday or Wednesday, I dealt with the other issue that was contained in a press release. I don't know, at the first instance, I asked the question, who sanctions these press releases before they are made public? And up to the present time, I do not have an answer. In relation to the gazetted order that was published, my understanding is that it is the responsibility of the chief elections officer. And he provided this document for the imprimatur and the execution of the chairman. So as a consequence, I have named two persons in whose direction I am looking, and looking very scrutinizingly in this regard.
The GECOM chair signed this order. I don't know if by you saying, Mr. Brand, that she appeared perturbed by the document presented to her, that she probably signed a document that she didn't peruse.
No,
I
it was
don't-
clear, it was clear that she did peruse a document, that she made corrections to that document, which appeared to have the correct information, but that Sis could clarify because he went in detail with her in the document, but that when perhaps the final came to her,
My-
it was she signed.
I
That's
will be a
my
little less diplomatic than my colleague. My information is that the document that appeared in the publication was not the document that got the approval of the chairman. And I believe that further clarity can be given on this by the chairman herself.
yes, but my point is that she did say she made corrections for English language and other things on a document. It went out to come back with corrections, and she signed a document which does not reflect what the commission decided clearly in the minutes of the commission. And therefore, this is why I said they slipped one under or past her. It had to be that this was slipped past or past or under her to get the signature somehow on the document. They'll have to be looked at, which is why I said investigation. But how else could we explain that if they just brought back a document to be signed and she skims it and just signs, then, you know, it slipped in. It could be too that they removed the further section and replaced them and only kept the signature page. So there is a lot of what I'd call sheer wickedness going on there, being done by certain actors. I'm sure the majority of persons there would like to do a professional and an honest job with integrity. But certainly, for all that we have seen since the no confidence motion, when GECOM, I believe the same PRO said that we will be ready for elections. That was the first press release I remember her issuing since then. She said we'll be ready for it in the period. And then we've had the charade and the sand dancing and the twists and twirls, and the courts got involved. But every time they were required to bring documents to us, even in the face of the chairperson informing the major stakeholders, the PPPC and the AP and UAFC, that we were working towards elections in 2019, by the end of 2019, she said, and I believe she informed the diplomatic corps too, because there were many visits we knew were happening. The Secretariat was bringing work plans which went to March and April of 2020. And in the result of everything, in all the time wasting which went on in discussions, because it was evident that they were wanting to come there and waste time, and every day slipped, and every week you had another meeting, you lost another week. In the end, the result that we got, 2020, March still, right?
Well, it's now,
I'm not sure, but you just confirm to me. I was giving up on trying to track the labyrinthine and shameless moves being attempted in respect of these elections. At the end of the day, we are not simply here speaking for the PPPC. Our position has always been one in respect of Guyana's constitution. And whatever the president does, the caretaker, usurper, whatever president that he is does, I believe he is latterly taking a position where he is not, perhaps no longer squatting in the position or defiling in a certain way or constitution, where apparently he has abandoned any rational thoughts of his legacy. At the end of the day, when we put out all the information and we look at all the steps which have been taken so far, it would show that we have stood clearly on the side of Guyana's constitution. And I fear, given the behavior so far, that we will have trouble in respect of attempts again, because there were attempts, and some say successfully, in 2011, 2015, in terms of committing fraud at elections. We don't want that. Whoever benefits at the end of the day, we have our personal and other perspectives, but we're not there to sit there and to commit and allow for fraud at elections. And which is why we want to take this opportunity to call for both national and international observers and experts and the people to get involved and to comment and to arrive on a rational position in these matters. Because we are in dangerous waters.
While we're here, are any of you in a position to give us status updates on the encoding process?
No,
we're
that
not.
is another shameless issue.
That's a shamelessly sore issue, because every time we inquire, we get to use Robeson's word, we get the same sand dance being performed in front of us. As we sit here, we do not have an accurate position to share.
I think we were first told that this thing would have taken 15 days. And we were in fact told that it would have been finished on the next Monday or Tuesday. SACE was getting pretty upset about that. It's one of the rare occasions I saw him pretty worked up. But we were told that they had brought new printers and scanners and that they had put on 2 additional shifts. So this encoding was a 24-hour operation. And so, and by the Tuesday of the meeting, we expected to have been told that all persons would have been encoded. To our great disappointment, in some way, I wasn't too surprised, but I was aiming for the Tuesday because I took the position that I believe what the Secretariat was telling us. They said they needed another 21 days, and we still weren't sure when the scanning would have been completed. So the original 15 days, I think, they added on 21 days, even though they put in the effort and the resources were more than doubled, tripled. And laterally at the last meeting, I think, we were told, when we were discussing the dates and what may happen, we were told by no other person but the CEO, Mr. Lowenfield, that he too wasn't sure about what could happen, that blackouts will happen. You see a lot of blackouts going on, blackouts will happen. So that's the level of management and appreciation for this important issue. That is the approach that is being made by the senior executive of the place.
Raymond Cummings, Freedom Radio. Is this inefficiency? And do people get fired in GECOM? Because I don't know any other place that you could be working and doing these sort of things, and you're in there.
Yeah, it's not.
As I said
It's not.
earlier,
It's not inefficiency. It's deliberate. My view, it's deliberate. It's been going on all the time since December. It's been going on all the time. It clearly could not be simple inefficiency. If we double your resources and you get all the money and so on, and you say you'll do it in this certain time, and it doesn't get done, and there are gross disparities in timing and resources in respect of a job which you planned, and you have bar charts and whatnot to say this is how the job will be done. It's clearly not inefficiency. It's deliberate. GECOM has a history of willful actions in respect of things at election time. I've been told in 2011, I believe, a returning officer for Region 3, I think, disappeared for 3 weeks with the polling statements. In the 2015 elections, talking about general and regional elections, of course, the returning officer for Region 4 disappeared. A lady, a Ms. Marshall, disappeared during the time when recounts were being requested for Region 4 because there were challenges waiting in respect of ballot boxes, I think for the East Coast, Lower East Coast, and some places in South. And perhaps not unsurprisingly, the 23 or whatever boxes which were identified for recounts have up to now, almost 5 years now, have not as yet been counted. They're locked away there, perhaps still. And we have not heard the elections petition related to this problem. I think I recall a long time ago in '97, where the whole secretariat staff walked out of the commission at the time when they were supposed to be undertaking counts. They said they were on strike or went away or something. So, out of fear, threats, and also willing complicity in respect of certain actions, we're not getting the best service at the commission. It's a cause of concern. We were recently told that there were offers from the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, Baroness Scotland, I think, that they were willing to send to Guyana election experts at the top level from Ghana and from India. In both cases, I think they were at one point or the other, they were head of commissions there.
Senior electoral officers.
Senior electoral officers. We were also told that there was an offer from Canada in respect of a technical person, high-level technical person, in respect of elections management, oversight, and to be able to give advice as to how the process could go along and quickly and so on. There is an effort on the way from one side or person of the commission to suggest that that person shouldn't come to Guyana. That person should only come after the elections are completed. This is what we're faced with. This is the level of wickedness that we're faced with. But when you see people come out after those meetings, I'm not talking about my friend says here, and they talk gravely and the press write grave things about what they say, it has to be subject to serious interpretation and scrutiny, and to put it together with what is going on, put it together with the environment in which we find ourselves, and put it together and match it against what our Constitution requires. Yeah.
Ladies
Any
and
further?
gentlemen, if there are no further questions, allow me to thank you again for your participation this afternoon at such short notice. Thank you and have a good weekend.